Good morning, everyone. We're live here with Kris at Inspired Energy and joining me, Hartwell, this morning. Good morning, Hartwell.
Good morning, Kris. Good morning, everyone.
Yeah, so we move on to our next sign, which we're going to look at the gates of Capricorn. So this should be interesting. So when we talk about Capricorn, what are the qualities that you see in this sign?
Well, when we think of Capricorn, we usually think of being ambitious, being status conscious, being workaholic. Um, we think of people who are practical, who are down to earth, who are focused on the end goal, who are often goal oriented. Integrity too is something that comes to mind with purposefulness, integrity,
Mhm.
dharma, doing what we're born to do in the world and serving in that way. These are all things that I think of when I think of Capricorn.
Okay, well, so with those qualities, what kind of gates might you expect to see in human design?
Well, it makes me think of gate 60, which is the gate of limitation. It makes me think of gate 50, the gate of values,
Hmm.
because those have that sort of hard edge to me.
Hmm.
Um, I think, well, maybe there's got to be some motor gates in there because, Capricorn can be quite driven.
Hmm.
Um, Maybe G center gates because, I think of purpose when I think um, half of the G center gates are very purpose oriented. So I think of that too.
So let's move on to the archetypes then. So, what archetypes would you see associated with Capricorn?
The manager, the advisor, the entrepreneur, the wise elder.
Right.
Sometimes we put father in that category, though that might be too generic a word for Capricorn, but we do,
Hmm.
that there is a father energy to Capricorn as well.
Right. So, as we dive in now, let's discover what the gates of Capricorn are. Can you start off and dive into them for us?
Sure. Well, first we start with gate 10, which we probably talked about a little bit last week.
Hmm.
Gate 10 is in the G, and it's called the gate of the behavior of the self. And for me, there's a joyfulness there because it's about love of the self. It makes me think Sagittarius, which seems bouncier and more joyful than Capricorn, and yet being true to oneself and loving oneself has a flavor of integrity to it as well, which does make me think of Capricorn. So it's interesting that that's a straddle gate. It's actually more in Capricorn than it is in Sagittarius.
Hmm. Interesting.
The next, pardon me.
I said that's interesting.
Yeah. The next one, gate 58, is called the gate of vitality. It's in the root,
Hmm.
and it fuels the stream over of collective circuitry, collective logical circuitry,
Hmm.
and it's part of the channel of judgment, along with the gate of correction, gate 18. So it's the pressure to test this pattern of society to see if that pattern is promoting health and well-being for the collective. So this is often a fuel. And remember, the root is a pressure center and it's also a motor.
Hmm.
But this is often the fuel that gets people to move from talk into action. It's about an appetite for life. It's called the gate of vitality. So it's about what makes us feel
Alive.
engaged with life. Yes, what makes us
Yeah.
feel alive.
Hmm.
Exactly. And there can be in Capricorn that sense of appetite for life because Capricorn often has a reputation of being a good lover or having a certain vitality about it.
Hmm.
So that's the gate of vitality. Um, Now, gate 38 is the next one. It's also in the root. It's also in the root center, and it's individual in its circuitry. It exerts the pressure to discover what has value in life, what is worth fighting for. It's the purpose and the energy for, um, taking action. It loves a good fight. It likes to face struggle head on as long as it feels purposeful. So, this is where we confront adversity. Um, Interestingly, it's also one of the gates of deafness, which protects individuality from us being too influenced by the tribe. So it's preservation of personal integrity. It's about perseverance and honor if we look at the gene key energies that arise from this. So a lot of that sounds quite Capricorn, you know.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because I have that gate. So it's like, it also sounds to me like very Aries when you talk about, the gate of the fighter. So, it's also that energy, because for me, being an Aries, it's always like, you fight for your family, you fight for your friends, like people that you believe in, your tribe. Like, it's
Right.
Yeah, I find that also for me an Aries energy.
Well, I think when we saw Aries, we saw that it had gates of the ego, which is all about tribe, right? So here, this is more about fighting for a purpose because it's individual.
Okay.
And yet, I can see why you say that, because my moon is actually in gate 38.
Yeah.
One of my moons is in gate 38. So there's that. So when we talk about purpose, that's maybe what brings the Capricorn flavor for me. And the willingness, yeah. But yeah, no, worthwhile points. And I think that's exactly why we're having this exploration, is to see these connections. Now, the next one, and it's interesting, they're all on one side. They're all on the left side of the body graph pointing towards the spleen, these
Oh,
three that we've
interesting.
seen in the row here. And gate 54, which is also in the root, is part of tribal circuitry. And and remember that all of these gates on the left side of the root point towards the spleen, and the spleen is all about survival. So even though these are in the root rather than spleen, they're part of a channel that is promoting the physical survival of our beings. So gate 54, 54, the gate of ambition or the gate of drive, is part of the channel of transformation. It's a drive to rise up for one's own sake, but also for the sake of one's tribe. There's a desire to be recognized by those above you in the hierarchy, to move forward in life by that recognition and that cultivation of what does it take to move up in the world. This is a fuel to master the material plane. So, interestingly, we sometimes have to, in a sense, master the material before we are able to fully engage with the spiritual. So there's actually a mystical thread to gate 54, which can be seen in the fourth line, which is called enlightenment or endarkenment. And that comes out clearly when we think of the gene key words. Greed is the shadow energy. And greed, I think, is something that has been associated with ambition and with Capricorn, that sense of drive, that sense of won't let anything stop you, that sense of damn the barriers kind of thing. But, that gives way to aspiration, which is a very beautiful energy, that desire to move forward in life. So that I mean, that's unmistakably Capricorn to me, when
Mm-hmm.
we talk that one. Now, the next one, gate 61, is all the way up in the head, which, as you'll remember from our exploration, is also a pressure center.
Mm-hmm.
So we have a pressure center at the root, we have a pressure center in the head, and this is individual circuitry. It's called the gate of mystery.
Mm-hmm.
This is the pressure to know and to unravel the mystery and to be inspired with unique moments of absolute recognition, that sense of knowing something directly. And there's that orientation or yearning for those moments of silence when something true and unquestionable drops in, that sense of knowing something directly.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it fuels kind of the energy or the archetype of the person who thinks for themselves, the individual thinker who is, again, who is unaffected or less affected by the voice of the collective.
Right.
Yeah. And the final gate, gate 60, is a bridging gate. It's, again, back down in the root. This time it's one of the format gates, and it is individual.
Mm-hmm.
This is the pressure for pure energy to mutate into form. So it waits for the mutational pulse, and it has to accept that there are limitations to life. So there's a wisdom here. There's patience is required.
Mm-hmm.
But
This one fascinates me because I know we talked about this before and how you said this gate can just create mutation around you, whether you're aware of it or not, just by being there, right?
yeah,
And
yeah,
so when you talk about timing, then the timing also has to be right in order for that to take place.
yes.
Okay.
Um, it's kind of it feels paradoxical to me because how is it that limitation or acceptance of limitation can pave the way for mutation? It seems contradictory.
Hmm.
And yet, that's how it works to some extent.
Hmm.
Life has its powerful thrust. And this is this this is the primary thrust leading towards mutation.
Hmm.
And yet, I mean, the image that came to me was of a dam,
Hmm.
and it's like, well, the dam is meant to hold things back, but at certain points, the dam is able to release pressure as well.
Yeah.
So
But
it's
it's
a
like it
very,
collects everything, right? Until it's time. When we talk
yes,
about that, I think about Reiki too. So, like when we're sending Reiki healing energy to somebody and they're not ready to receive and up level, then it
mm,
all comes pouring through at once, right? So,
yes,
yeah.
yes. That's a nice comparison. It's evolution has its own timing and we can't control it.
Hmm.
And that has to be acknowledged.
Right. So, with the patterns, like what kind of patterns did you see with the exploring these gates of Capricorn?
Well, it was very clear. 4 of the 6 gates are gates of the root.
Hmm.
Um, and the root is all about the pressure to evolve, to move forward in life, to improve, to progress, to go forward. And it is also about how we handle pressure. So we have to understand that pressure or stress is natural.
Hmm.
Okay. But the reason so many people have a problem with stress is because they're not aligned and living in alignment with their true selves. But
Hmm.
this pressure is what brings life to the world. So people who are actually defined in the root, they have a consistent way of knowing how to deal with pressure. And it is characterized by the gates that they have defined.
Hmm.
So you do have a way of dealing with stress, and it's not something to try and get away from.
Mm-hmm.
So um, now this idea of pressure is amplified because one of the other gates, that gate 61, is in the head, which is another pressure center.
Mm-hmm.
So Capricorns are clearly people under pressure.
Mm-hmm.
They are people who are meant to go somewhere, get things done.
Mm-hmm.
And there is this drive that arises from them that is relentless, because that's
Mm-hmm.
what the root is. But then we have the relentless pressure from gate 61 to engage with the mystery of life. I find that very fascinating. Um,
So what kind of, sorry?
Another pattern is that these gates, four of them are in the individual circuitry. And that initially surprised me as well.
Mm-hmm.
But individual circuitry it has a theme, an overarching theme of integrity. It's about empowerment. It's about being true to oneself. And
Mm-hmm.
it's about being resistant to the voices of society and say, I'm going to do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
So, when I think Frank Sinatra and I did it my way, it just popped into my head.
Yeah.
That could be talking about these Capricorn gates.
Mm-hmm. So what are your impressions of the Capricorn gates after diving in and reviewing this?
Well, my impression is that they feel very Capricorn.
Mm-hmm.
I said when I did Scorpio that I can recognize these as feeling, being in alignment with what we see as Scorpio. And
Right.
I feel that of the signs we've looked at, wow, this feels in alignment with the astrological signs.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm not sure that, as I say, that could be my own limitation in being aware of the energies of those other gates, because I don't have them all. None of
Mm-hmm.
us do,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But I find that intriguing, and it makes me excited. Okay, well, if I get more familiar with the gates that I don't resonate with as much, I would, my wisdom would open up much
Mm-hmm.
more, and
Mm-hmm.
I would grow as an astrologer and as a human design analyst.
Right.
Um, but it also inspires me, because I really think that our exploration, our cross-referencing here, is
Mm-hmm.
bringing greater depth to both disciplines,
Mm-hmm.
or to astrology anyway.
Yeah.
Um, yeah.
Cool.
Do you have any thoughts having so many of those gates?
Well, I can definitely see with those gates where, especially because I feel so pressurized all the time. So knowing that this is where the pressure is coming from, because they also have a lot defined in the ajna as well and the head. So
Yeah.
yeah, it makes sense for me. Like it's almost like I never turn off. It's like, okay, what's next? What's next? What's next? What's next? And so I can see where the whole theme of stress and exhaustion and breaking down and all of that can come from, because it's like your wind up toy and you just keep going and keep going and keep going and keep going, right? No matter whether you bump into a
Yes.
wall or fall down, whatever that is. So I can see a lot of that, as well as, when we talk about um, being part of the gate of deafness. And I can definitely relate to that, because people do lots of times have a very hard time changing my mind when my mind is set on something. So, yeah.
Hmm.
Mhm.
It also may give you real fuel for thought to kind of say, okay, so this in me is an Aries energy versus, so this is a Capricorn energy.
Mhm.
Um, because sometimes we like to co-opt when we're describing ourselves, and we know astrology a bit, we say, oh, this is because I'm this.
Mhm.
And it's like, okay, well, no, that's because you have a lot of this Capricorn energy.
Right.
Maybe, something for you to think about.
Yeah, and I think also it helps bring up those kinds of things that when we look in human design, we actually have traits of many different signs, like not just what you think of as Aries and then or Capricorn. That's why there's so many different types of people. When you
Yeah.
say that sign, it doesn't mean that that's how they are. They each have an individual chemistry or makeup according to human design, which is that's why I find it so valuable to use human design, is because then you can go deeper and deeper and deeper and discover more about yourself, right? That's what I find.
It does. It in astrology, all the planets are important, but the sun and moon, the sun and moon stand out.
Hmm.
Um, because human design, these energies fix the planets fix particular energies in terms of this is in this gate, this is in this gate.
Hmm.
Um, it forces your awareness to operate in a different way.
Hmm.
Um, the individuality of the planets become a little less central, and yet the qualities that they actually fix by being in particular gates becomes more important.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's interesting once you start diving into it. So, any final thoughts before we sign off for today?
Well, yeah, kind of the same as always, which
Mhm.
is um, there are many ways. There are several ways then to be the energy of a particular sign,
Mhm.
and the study of human design moves us towards a greater appreciation for diversity of
Mhm.
ourselves, but all of the people that we share the planet with. And I
Mhm.
think that's an enormous benefit.
Mhm.
It's that we're all unique.
Mhm.
We're all unique, and we're all needed, and
Mhm.
we're created perfectly. And once we start recognizing and aligning with that perfection, then our experience of reality shifts.
Mhm. Exactly. So, thank you for your insight. And with that, we're going to sign off for today. God bless you all. Should you want to dive deeper into either astrology or human design, you can book an appointment here with Hartwell at 587-596-3333. We'd be happy to facilitate that with you. If you have had your human design or astrology done and you want to go deeper, there's always deeper levels, which are enlightening and life changing for you. So we hope to see you again next week. And God bless, and we'll see you later.